I've been having a little bit of technical difficulty trying to get these notes up, so I'm going to do them in short bursts instead of a lesson at a time. A few weeks back, we were talking about the Lord's Supper in the last week before Jesus' crucifixion, and I wanted to point out something that sometimes confuses us as we read the scriptures. We need to understand that in the Bible, when they talk about times and dates and stuff, they are using the Jewish calendar. And the Jewish day always starts at sunset and it goes to the next sunset. The Western calendar, which is what we follow, goes from midnight to midnight. So our day would begin in the middle of the night for the Jewish day, and it would go to the middle of the night on the next Jewish day. So we're, approximately half a day off sometimes in calculation. The gospel accounts give us a pretty accurate depiction of everything Jesus did within that last week or so before his crucifixion. John especially is good about saying things like 6 days before or on the next day or whatever, and you can pretty well figure out everything he did that week. The other thing I want to point out is that it's the Passover weekend, and things that happened on certain days follow along the timeline of celebrating the Passover. Like on the 10th of Nisan, that is the day that the Passover lamb was chosen. And in our calendar here, it is the first day of the week this year. It's not always the first day of the week, but in this year, it is the first day of the week. That's also the day of Jesus' triumphant entry. It's like the day that people are choosing their Passover lambs. Jesus rides into Jerusalem, and on that day, he is accepted by the people. They're celebrating him as he comes in. Most days, he goes into Jerusalem. You see him in the temple, him teaching, and then at night he goes back out to Bethany, probably the home of Martha and Lazarus, and spends the evening time there. Another thing we need to keep in mind is that Jesus told us that the Son of Man would be in the earth 3 days and 3 nights. So if we follow that plan, we can kind of back into when he was crucified. We know that the women arrive at the tomb before the sun is up, or just as the sun is coming up, and they find that it is empty. So we're going to back into this. That would be night 3, and you'll notice that at the bottom of the calendar there, the chart where it says night 3. The daytime before that would be day 3, then night 2, then day 2, and then night 1, and then day 1. The night before day 1 is when the Last Supper occurs. It is when Jesus is arrested. It's when he has his trial before the priests. As the sun is coming up, he is taken to Pilate. He has his trial before Pilate. He is hung on the cross that morning, and he is in the grave before sundown, before the sun goes down, because the Passover feast itself was going to be observed at sundown. This is what John calls a high Sabbath. It's a Sabbath, a day of rest, but it is a feast day. Then Jesus, he's in the grave before sundown. That's day 1. That night, everybody is celebrating the Passover feast because the lambs have been killed that day, that morning, when Jesus hung on the cross and died, that's when they were killing the lambs. Then the Passover feast is observed that night. The next day, he is still in the grave. That night is the weekly Sabbath that came around every seventh day. The next day, he's still in the grave. That third night, he is out of the grave. He rises that third night, and we are told that that's the first day of the week. So that's how we kind of back into that. We start out with the fact that he is out of the grave on the first day of the week. We are told that the women arrive. He's out that night, and we just kind of back into, and we can tell when he actually died and when was the Last Supper. But if you look across to the Western calendar, the calendar we follow, the Last Supper would have happened on the 14th day of Nisan. That's the 5th day of their week, that night. But you'll notice Wednesday night is when, for us, it would be Wednesday evening is when the Last Supper would occur, that night time. His trial before Pilate during the day there would have been on Thursday. He would have been hung on the cross, taken down before sunset, which would be their 6th day of the week. And then he is in the grave Friday and Saturday, but he comes out of the grave on Sunday before the sun comes up, and you can see that their first day of the week starts at sundown on our Saturday. But remember, the nighttime for us, the day doesn't start till midnight for us, but the night still goes on. So their night goes on until what would be sunrise on our Sunday. I'm hoping that's not too terribly confusing, and hoping that chart will help you get a better grip on how things happened, and how in the scripture it doesn't always correlate to our calendar, because they didn't follow our calendar. Our calendar didn't come along for a long time. They went by the Jewish calendar. They went by what was set in place in Genesis 1, when God said, and there was evening and there was morning that day. So their day starts at night, and it goes until the next night. We'll continue in the next little clip.